Don't mind us, girls. Okay, so let's get started. So, welcome, ladies. We're sorry we missed you last week, but hopefully, a lot of this will be review for you guys since you've been in this position. But we just wanted to go over a few things, obviously for the beginning of the school year. So, here's kind of the agenda that we had done for the training last week. We did have a special guest speaker. You guys unfortunately missed that, but her information is in this PowerPoint. Her name was Chelsea Sinnott. She is from University of South Carolina. She runs the Carolina Life program over there. So Chelsea came and talked to all of us and all the coordinators about some of those programs and post-secondary education and really how to start planning for it and what they're about. So we were really appreciative that she came. Everybody found it very helpful. So if you have questions about that, and Rosa, I'm on her screen now where it says post-secondary education. She's a great resource, and you can come, ask either Susan or I, and we can direct you to her. But she really gave a great background of post-secondary and how it's evolved over the years and what kind of programs various colleges throughout the state offer for our students. We also talked about potentially, sometime this winter having Chelsea join us in the webinar, and she can help schools, especially Lucia Moore U, but high schoolers start to prepare and look at goals and how to rewrite goals and things like that to prepare these kids for programs and for that post-secondary piece. So it was a great piece of information.
Okay.
But we left this in the PowerPoint. You guys can peruse it. And again, if you have questions, just reach out to Susan or I. So I'm just going to slide through. So I'm just clicking right now through her presentation because we're not going to take the time to go over it. And quite honestly, I don't know if Susan and I could do it as much justice as Chelsea did. But it was very good. So, reach out and read about it because it's pretty interesting, right, Susan?
So it's a good resource for the students to enroll to the university, different type of, all disabilities and.
Yeah, Lucia, it is. I don't know if you've heard about Carolina Life. Clemson has one. Clemson has a Clemson Life, I think.
Okay. I know now. Because for Clemson, when I've been to those trainings for the summer from the department, Clemson always had a training. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing with whatever they offer.
Yeah, but each university, and Chelsea went through this, and when you read the slides, you'll kind of see it. But each university offers each life program is very different. In terms of their goals and their focus and the type of students they accept and what they're looking for. So she did go through that a little bit with the different universities around the state that offer these programs and kind of what they offer. Obviously, she talked more specifically about USC because that's her program, but she did go into a little bit of review of the difference between Clemson and I think, is it Coastal Carolina, Susan, that has one?
Yeah, Coastal Carolina, Clemson, Wofford, or Winthrop. I'm trying to think of what else, but Clemson has two, and they're varying degrees. I would argue, I think we're biased, but I would argue that the USC program, I don't know a lot about a lot of the other programs, but is very integrated, where you can't identify on visually who's part of the Carolina Life program and who's not.
Yeah.
They're fully integrated. But again, it's a non-degree based post-secondary education program, and it is not a gateway to a degree. They go into that and then would go for a 4-year degree. It is a non-degree program.
Okay.
Yeah, and when we kind of look at the students in our district, I would see, and being biased since we're both part of USC as well, I would see USC, and I forgot which one she said was similar to it, somewhat of a better fit for some of our students as opposed to Clemson, which is, for students who need a lot in my opinion, a lot more support.
Yeah, a lot more
Yeah.
supervision and structure. But also, Laura, I could be wrong, and I hate saying this if I'm totally wrong, but Clemson's programs, there's 2 of them, and aren't they each 2 years?
I'm not really sure about that. I mean, I know they offer the 4-year program like Carolina Life does.
Maybe one of them is a 2-year program with more support.
Yeah.
Okay. But all that information is on their websites too, ladies.
Okay.
But if you have questions, Lucia, or even you, Rosa, if you're, starting thinking about kids, just feel free to reach out and ask. And if we don't know, we certainly can reach out to those folks.
Okay.
And I believe Elizabeth is now on with us.
Hi, Elizabeth. Okay.
Hey, sorry, I was trying to find the unmute. Hello.
That's okay. So this is going to be very informal. We are recording it just so other folks can have it, and we will post it on the Google site as well. But this is just basic overview. Some things have changed this year. Some things have maintained the same. But obviously, our focus, just like it has been in the past, is system structures and supports. So we want to make sure you all are building programs and processes within your building so that if you ever leave, the program doesn't fall apart. So you want to make sure you have the system structures and supports in place, because you don't want the job dependent upon you, although it's always nice, but we don't want, if you happen to leave or there's an emergency or whatever, we want it so in the school somebody could just pick up and know exactly what was going on. So that's really your focus as you're building these programs. I know Elizabeth and Rosa, being new schools, you guys are working on that, and I think Lucia has a pretty good system in place. But that was just, that's still our focus this year as we move forward.
Okay.
So again, I'm on the housekeeping slide, Rosa, because you're following along.
Yes.
This was just, of course, from the thing, just stay engaged. If you have questions, y'all, please feel free to just ask.
Okay.
Well, the 5 of us, 3 of you and 2 of us. But a few general updates. So our Part B audit, if you guys remember, Rosa, you weren't a part of that. Your school wasn't a school yet. But Lucia and Elizabeth, you'll remember from Legacy, we had that general audit. At this point, I think we're on almost 2 years. We were asking last year for MDRs, and that was kind of the last piece of that puzzle. So the good news is we have not officially gotten our letter, but I have talked to the State Department, and it looks like we are finally going to be cleared of everything. Just waiting for that general letter to come from the State Department. So I think we're finally done with that audit at this point.
Oh, wow.
So that's fabulous for us.
That's great news.
Yeah, it is great. It is great. So we will have, we won't have another audit like that. It's a 6-year cycle, so we won't be on the list again for another 5 years, maybe 4 years. And then indicator 13, which is our transition, that's a 3-year cycle. So we're looking at that not next year, but the year after. So we're not totally free of audits, but at least we'll get, I believe, a year reprieve from any program audit for compliance and stuff. So that's good. We wanted to remind you that we are going to be doing webinars this year again, just like we did last year. We'll talk about that a little bit more as this goes through. This year we are going to ask, if you don't participate live, which we certainly understand not everybody can, and that's why we post them, there will be a form for you all to fill out, just so we can see and make sure that people are actually watching. We tend to get a lot of questions of things that are actually answered in those webinars. So we just want to make sure that everybody's watching them and viewing them before they, ask questions and stuff.
And ladies, you don't have to do it for this training, because I wrote down your names and I'll document you did the makeup training, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you guys have ideas of things you want to make sure we address in webinars this year, feel free to shoot Susan or I or both of us or whichever an email of some thoughts. If you thought, as you guys went through this, especially you, Rosa, as a new school, what would be something maybe that we didn't cover that would have been really helpful for you this year or last year? So we can help tailor a little bit on that. We did ask for, we don't have a whole lot of new coordinators this year, but this year we wanted to implement mentors. So we did ask seasoned coordinators if you're willing to be a mentor for some of our new folks to let us know. I think, Elizabeth, you said you would be happy to.
Yes.
And Lucia, if you're...
Yes, I will be too.
And Lucia mentored me last year. I really want to just say that right now.
Perfect.
She was so kind. I would run over to her school when I had questions, and she always had time for me, and I appreciate that.
Oh,
so thank you,
You're very welcome.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
so I have a note to add Elizabeth and Lucia to that mentor list, and I will do that today before the end of the day, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, and really the purpose is much like Lucia and Rosa, you found out, you know, sometimes you want to talk to another coordinator who's been through it prior to talking to us. I mean, sometimes things are happening and maybe you don't want us to know yet. So it's always kind of nicer to phone a friend. So we do have a few that have volunteered. So Susan is going to post that list on the site. So you can reach out to, you know, any of those guys.
I printed it last night.
Well, there you go.
And also, if I had a question and I couldn't get Lucia, I would always call Tiffany Hudson, and she was also very, very helpful.
Good.
Throughout my year, yes.
Good. So our goal obviously is to keep you all and not have you all decide it's too much. So, I mean, it's great that our season, so thank you, Lucia and Elizabeth, coordinators who have been through this for a while are willing to help some of our new folks.
Yeah.
Another note, just keep in mind, Susan and I will never take vacation, and we really try hard not to be sick on the same day at the same time. So you guys always have one of us to reach. However, on September 3rd and 4th, we actually will both, hopefully will be the only time we both will be unavailable. As you guys know, we're working through our PhD, and on September 3rd and 4th, we actually take our comp exams on that day. So we will both be completely unavailable that day. If you have an emergency, you can feel free. We voluntold Emily, but you can feel free to reach Emily. She loved that. You can email us, you know, and stuff, but just know on the 3rd and the 4th, it's not going to be a quick response because we will be literally testing for 6 hours each day.
And good luck. I know.
Thank you.
I can imagine. Good luck.
Good luck.
Best wishes.
We're getting ready for it, right, Susan? We're plowing through it.
I can't imagine what you're going.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So this is a culmination of this is year 5 for us. So this test is the culmination of all of our coursework and everything we've learned in the last 4 years. So
good.
Hopefully we've learned something.
You'll be spitting out a lot.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing to note is starting Friday, so August 2nd through the 8th, I actually will be on vacation. So Elizabeth and Rosa, if you guys have questions, feel free to reach out to Susan.
Are you my person again this year?
Yeah, Laura? We're going to do that right now. So there you go. Here's the next slide. So we did change a couple schools this year, but for the most part, we have we wanted to maintain consistency. But we did have a couple little changes. I don't think it affects any of you guys. So Elizabeth, you're still mine. Bettis, you're still, direct contact is me. And then Lucia, your direct contact is still Susan. But, just remember, if you have any questions, we know what's going on in all of our schools because we talk regularly. I know that surprises you guys. I don't think there's many days Susan and I go without at least talking to each other. So if, you have an emergency and for some reason you can't get a hold of me, Rose or Elizabeth, you certainly could always call Susan. The only thing we ask, and we said this at the training, is that don't play the mom and dad game. So if you call me and get an answer and you don't like my answer, don't call Susan to try and get a different answer.
We don't do that.
You're going to get exactly the same answer.
We're big girls. We're big girls. We're not going to do that.
Oh, Rosa, you'd be surprised.
Rosa knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. So don't play that mom and dad game that, or good cop, bad cop. So again, just remember, this is our goal as a district. We're here to support you. We're here to make sure we're staying in compliance with everything. We're here to make sure that our students are growing and that they're getting their free appropriate education and that we're closing that gap. And, you know, again, we are here to support. We're not here to just get you. We're here to support you. So now I'm on the COSIF slide, Rosa, for your knowledge, so you know where we are. So,
Yes.
Lucia, this doesn't impact you at all, but just remember about the childhood outcome summary form, Rosa and Elizabeth, that, you know, that's for those children who are under the age of 6. So as they enroll in a program, if they're under the age of 6, we're going to do a COSIF entry form. As they turn 6, either 3 weeks before or 3 weeks after their 6th birthday, we're going to do an exit form. If they move out, we're going to do one. This is also something this year we'll do a webinar on specifically. We know that there are still a lot of questions about it. We got much better about it this year. But we will do a separate COSIF webinar just so everybody understands what to do. And then Lucia, for you, of course, you have your SOPs or your summary performance, right? Those are those students who are aging or graduating out this year. And we will probably, not probably, I think we're also going to do a webinar on that one as well.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a quick question about COSIF.
Yes, ma'am.
So if a child enters school and starts with us on August 20th and they just turned 6, but we didn't know them or anything, should we wait 3 weeks and then do it, or like what would you do about that situation?
So you could wait 3 weeks, Elizabeth, but you also could see maybe the previous school district had done it. They may have completed an exit form before the student left or before their birthday. So you definitely want to reach out and see if we can get that entry and exit data from the previous school. If for some reason you can't get it, then yeah, I would wait 3 weeks so you have a little bit more knowledge of the student and then complete the exit.
Okay.
And this is new. This is new for me as well, Laura. This is new. The COSIF is new for me. So this would be students coming to us in kindergarten.
So it could be students transferring in, Rosa, or it could be students that you all are putting through your RTI process that you're looking at potentially evaluating, identifying. We didn't have any last year of that age, but that doesn't mean that you won't necessarily as time goes on. But these are your little ones, you know, your 5-year-olds essentially.
I had some first graders last year that once they entered and we got all the information, the school hadn't done a COSIF, even though they might have been like 6 years and a month or whatever, and I still did a COSIF on them. Is that okay?
Yes, and you should. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you're going to use, you know, you may not have all of the information, but you can use the previous IEP and any evaluations. And, you know, you can kind of base it on that. And in that situation, we definitely want some more parent input on skills and stuff. So that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that form is on our website, the COSIF form.
So it's all a part of Enrich, Rosa. It's all in the Enrich system. So if you get a student who's 5, you can just call me and we can talk through it. But it's all
Okay.
And then when we do the webinar, I don't know if we'll do a live one or I'll just record that one and we'll have, you know, and Susan will do the summary performance. We'll let you all know and you can view it. And that should help explain everything as well, because we'll do screenshots and everything like that. The other thing we wanted to let you know is our Spread Connection site. Everybody remember that?
Yes.
So we have decided, Susan and I have made an executive decision based on response that we are going to continue to pay for that site for another year. So you all will still have access to that website as well for the next year.
Okay.
That's good.
Yep. We had a lot of response to it and people really seemed to like it and utilized it. So we felt that it was really important to keep that, to put it in the budget.
Same login?
Same login and everything, yes.
Okay.
Yep, that hasn't changed.
But we'll have another, what is the form called, Laura?
Oh, yeah, I'll ask each of you to sign, just like you did last year, that little form that says you agree not to share the login information. It is available to everybody in the district, but obviously we do ask that you don't share it with your friends in other districts because we are paying for that site. So it's just, I mean, if you remember that form, it's just you're agreeing to, hey, yeah, I'm not going to share this with my friends in, you know, Berkeley County or Oconee County or anywhere else. That will, I agree to keep this within the district.
Okay.
Okay. You can feel free to share with administrators and stuff if you want, you know, if they're in your school and you want to show them, hey, check out this great website, that's fine. You just can't share it outside your school. So just a few things. Again, this is review for all you folks there. Just a reminder about the audit log and enrich. That's something that Susan and I have access to. So it is something that we can go in and see when you or somebody else does something in the system on a student. We can actually see who logged in, what time, and what they did. So we haven't had many issues this year. And keep in mind, y'all, we do not sit there and look through these audit logs and say, let's see what Rose is doing today. I mean, we don't do that. We don't have time for that, and you're professionals. So the only time we really access this, if there's a concern or, you know, we have someone saying, you know, you all have someone saying, hey, my speech teacher said she entered these progress goals, but for some reason they're not there. And then we go in and realize, well, that can't be true because your speech teacher or whoever hasn't logged in the system in 3 months. So some of it's to help you all with some of that, but if we ever have a situation, it also, so we just want you all to be mindful of that. Like I said, we do not go in and check and make sure, I mean, nobody has time for that. But there have been situations where it has been an issue. So you don't, the reminder really is don't give out your username and password for Enrich. Don't let somebody else use it, because if they go in and do something, it'll show up as you did it. So don't ever share that information. Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
Yep. So this year we have enlisted, or I don't think that's the word. I'm making up words again here, Susan. We have created, let's use that word, a Enrich ticket. So we get a lot of requests to fix things in Enrich, to go over things and all of that. And it can be very overwhelming for Susan and I, especially, you know, via emails. And, you know, we're human. So there are times they get backed up and we're like, oh, gosh, I got that 2 weeks ago and I haven't done anything about it. So this year, and the link is here on the web, on the PowerPoint, if you have an Enrich issue, now not for users or anything, that's still done the same way through the Cognito form and all that. This is if, you know, you're having a problem finalizing something, you need something corrected in there or whatever that Susan and I can directly assist with, you're going to fill out this form and it's going to come to us and we will check them. I think, Susan, we have in the form, it's like twice a week we'll devote to Enrich.
Yeah, and we'll be very transparent once we set all of our schedules and our calls for this year. But I think right now we have like a couple hours Monday and a couple on Thursday. Then that may change, but we'll let you know.
Yeah, and we'll do them in the order in which they're received. So, you know, please don't email like 2 hours or an hour before your meeting and say, hey, I need this done, because chances are it's not going to happen that quickly. So, you know, just make sure if you have Enrich questions or if there's things, you know, again, except for user access and stuff, you're utilizing that form this year to request assistance. That makes sense?
I have a question about that. Is it only us you want to send it, or can case managers send it? Other case managers, or do you only want it to come from the coordinator?
We would prefer it came from the coordinator because they should be communicating with you all what's happening.
Okay.
So if they're experiencing issues, if they're making mistakes, you know, we want you to be aware of that. I mean, part of this form is also going to be used for our knowledge, to see, you know, are we getting more requests from certain schools? Do we need to tailor some more training for schools? You know, it's also good information for us to see, you know, kind of what we need to do in order to support or work with you on how to best support you. Again, it's not a gotcha. It's a good way for us to help tailor additional training if we need it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And just a reminder, when your folks do get their usernames and passwords, you know, they have to attempt to sign in. Tell them do not copy and paste that username and password. It won't work. They have to type it in. And then they will get that no access red bar, and then they just need to email Susan or myself, and we set that access. Be sure also to let them know to tell us their role in the school. Sometimes we just get a random email that says, hey, I tried to access Enrich and it said I had no access, can you help? And we have no idea what school they're at or what their role is. So make sure they identify that with us. It says they're currently updating this form, which is still true. It's actually not going to be available now till August 4th. So don't try and make any attempts for requests for logins or anything at this point until August 4th. They are working on that form and updating it. So just a reminder, as we talk about, you guys know that in the beginning, there's always your transfers. So you want to make sure you have your procedures to identify those with your folks in the office and who's getting those records. Remember, those comparable services begin within 5 days. It's not a meeting, it's that phone call. And then at 30 days, we do expect an IEP meeting. It can be an amendment, but we strongly recommend that you do it as an annual review. Just because if there are compliance issues with the received IEP, once you do that 30-day meeting, you all own those issues. So we do recommend at that 30-day meeting, it is an annual review. But if you look at the IEP, you think it's good and there's no issues, you certainly can do it as amendment as well. We've had a lot of issues this year with those student record transfer codes. Anybody get frustrated with those a little bit?
Oh my gosh, I think I'm still having nightmares. I'm starting to have nightmares now knowing that I have to do it again.
Yeah, so you'll have to do it again. But the good news is now our friend Louie, who works with us, did set that system. So part of the issue is people were accepting programs in different orders. So Enrich will only allow you now to accept them in the correct order. So that should hopefully help with some of those issues. At this point, Susan and I don't know what that looks like because we haven't gotten any codes, so we haven't gone through that to see exactly how that looks in this. It'll look the same, but I don't know if you're going to get like an error or if it's going to show, hey, this wasn't the correct form to accept or whatnot. So if you guys get some Enrich codes or transfer codes, if you want to shoot, or if you have one now, if you want to shoot it to Susan and I, we can, we'll actually do it as we can kind of do it together and see what it's going to look like.
Okay. Question, Laura.
Yes.
Now, we will gonna start with the students in about 3 weeks. If I'm going at work next week and already I start to work at this transfer, and the documentation is transferred and the student is not coming anymore to our school, because things can happen, to wait until that week when we will do the 5 days of enrollment, or what?
Yeah.
What suggestion is?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, Lucia, and that you guys want to get this stuff, you want to get this process started because it does take a while.
Yes.
And all of the students now, you should be able to see it Enrich. As long as they're enrolled in PowerSchool, we were able to get that immediately available to you all. So, I mean, you can start the process, Lucia, if you want, and then if that student doesn't enroll, at some point another district is going to request that information, and then you just transfer it back to that next district.
Okay.
I agree. I wouldn't want to wait because you can absolutely get bombarded at the beginning of the year. So if you have codes and stuff, you are free to start transferring those at this point.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, because you can always, you're just transferring it in.
Yes.
You're not really doing much to it. So then within those 5 days, all you have to do is call the parents or talk to the student or whatever. And if they don't show, we would just end them in Enrich. You just have to go in and end them. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just remember, at that 5-day meeting, you really can't make any changes to what's coming in because you don't know that student. So, you can't make big changes on the IEP. It is comparable. That doesn't mean it has to be exact, but it is comparable services. So you can only make those changes if you have new data to support that. So that's why we recommend those 30 days. If you have a very complicated child that enrolls and you're not really sure, reach out to one of us. We'll help you walk through it. But we can't make big changes to an IEP in 5 days because we don't know that student. So this was just a little activity we did, but think about it. I mean, who requests the records? Where do you get them from? I mean, if you guys want to share with each other right now for a minute, I mean, Elizabeth, what's your process there when kids come in? How are you notified and all of that?
When we request the records, I know who has requested it because my office manager lets me know, hey, we know who are the kids that are new enrollees, and then she lets me know, hey, I requested it from this school in this school district, and I also checked all the special ed documents for the child just in case, so I know it's coming. When she receives the documents, either electronically or by fax or by mail, she always shares them with me, either like showing them to me in person so I can go through them in case there's like a clue that she missed that they are sped. And she also, or she'll forward me the email if it comes through email, or she'll show me the fax. So like she's constantly communicating from the school or the district. And with school or district office, it just depends on what district it is. Some districts want you to ask from the direct school and some want it directly from the district office. So we actually have like a list of the schools and their contact information of who to request the records from in our area. So that's what we do. If we don't get the records within 5 days, we start right away asking the parents to give us stuff ahead of time. So like if the kid is accepted, we ask for things from the parent, so at least we have a parent copy of it, so we have like some clue. So if the parent gives me, let's see, I've had like a parent just give me the progress report. Well, that's a clue that the child is special ed and that I need to maybe call someone if I'm not getting the information, or if the school didn't send the special ed part of the student's files. I know that I need to start investigating well ahead of time. Instead of waiting until the 5 days. So we ask for once they're enrolled, we ask the parents to give whatever they can so we can get started with stuff, and then we get it from the school later. And then also once they're enrolled and accepted, our parents go through like kind of like an interview process just to find out more about the child. So they do that, but that's kind of because we can screen our kids. So. Right. So when they're interviewed after they've been accepted, that's when we may ask, were there any special services they got outside of school or in school? Did they go to any therapist outside of school? Did they go to anything like that inside of school? And things like that. We even ask for like if they have student work, like if they have assessments or tests, just like that they've done in the classroom. That are recent, just so we can see the student work. So right. That's the way we do it.
Elizabeth, I don't know how many, just FYI, how many students you take from Greenville County, but they have switched to Enrich this year.
I heard.
Yeah, so I think I forwarded everybody the email on how to get records this year.
Cynthia Elrod, right?
Yeah, so next year it should change. They'll have the ability to start giving us those electronic transfer codes and stuff. So that's a good thing for our upstate schools who select Greenville.
It is. I also, depending on if someone's bit me before, I will send, we don't have any information on the student yet, they're coming from Greenwood, I'll send every student from Greenwood to the person who our contact for Enrich Codes is. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, I know that some of these are sped, but some of them we've had no contact about it. We just want to make sure that we start serving them on, right at the first week of school. Can you help us out? Now, some districts have been like, don't ever send someone that's not, but that's what I have done. And I know like who to request it from for every student from that district that's coming over, or I know like only requests the special ed students, because some people get angry that they have to do extra work.
Yeah, yeah. Great. And Lucia and Rosa, you all have a system, I should say, do you all have a system so you're made aware of students moving in and things like that?
Yes.
Yes, we do. And with our students, since they're K through 5, most of the parents come in right away, and they're very anxious to get their children settled in. So immediately they tell us that the child has special needs, and then we began to talk, and then our guidance counselor requests the records for us, and we move from there.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's talk about initial evaluations and eligibility. So remember that once you get a parent's consent for evaluation, your 60-day timeline kicks in, and it's 60 calendar days. So if you're doing things over Christmas break and you get a permission to evaluate right before Christmas break, you've just lost, for most schools, essentially 2 weeks of your timeline. So be very careful when you're getting these permissions to evaluate that, you can't go past those 60 calendar days. This is an indicator by the State Department. This is something that we are rated on as a district. It does affect our overall LEA rating, which Susan will talk about here in a little bit. But one thing that we have noticed is that we seem to be getting a little lackadaisical, if that's a good word, on making sure we're meeting these 60-day timelines. So for instance, not this past year, but the year before, we had one school that had missed our 60-day timeline. Well, y'all, this year we had 4 schools that missed a 60-day timeline. So that is going to impact us directly on a rating from the State Department. So make sure you are scheduling with plenty of time to spare in case situations arise. There really is no reason for us to miss a 60-day timeline. You all have to keep up with your psychologists and everybody else that's doing these evaluations to make sure they're getting them done in time. If you are running into problems, please let Susan or I know. Right? When you're holding your planning meetings, make sure you have everybody at the table and discuss every area. We don't typically just do an initial evaluation for speech, right? You want to make sure you look at the whole child and do everything you need to do right from the beginning, because then it kind of starts to get complicated if in the middle of evaluating they're like, well, I really think there's some processing issues with, that's going to cause you all to have more meetings than needed. So at those initial planning meetings, make sure you have everybody that could potentially evaluate at the table where there are concerns for the student. That doesn't mean if there's no OT concerns or fine motor, you have to have an OT at every meeting or a PT. But you definitely want to have your primary folks, your psychologist, your special ed teacher, your general ed teacher. I might also recommend your speech, especially if there are, communication concerns or something like that. And let's just do the initial evaluation all at one shot instead of having to come back. The other thing we wanted to let you know in terms of schools that missed the 60-day timeline, so we have initiated a new procedure with the folks in our accountability office. So what happens is once I just reported the report to the state just here in July. So when we get feedback from them and they say, hey, yeah, you actually missed 4 timelines or 4 students, what happens then is a letter to the school leader and I believe also the board or the board chair goes out from our accountability department, and the school is automatically put on a corrective action plan for missing that timeline, because it does directly impact our rating as a district.
So what if the timeline fell on because of the other school, like the student comes in and the other school didn't do it and they were in the middle of moving, and during the middle of moving the timeline went out uncompliant?
Right. So there are some exceptions that the State Department accepts as, they're not going to ding us for it. So a situation like that may be one. Obviously, our goal is to try and get those evaluations done within the timeline. And it may be that you're reaching out to the other school districts and saying, hey, what have you done? Or can your person finish this evaluation since you are almost done? That type of thing. I mean, we know we have students move in the middle of the process, and that doesn't necessarily fall on you all, but we still want to do our best to get it done. But there are some exceptions, Elizabeth, by the state that they will, quote, forget that timeline wasn't missed. And that would be technically one of them.
I've also had students, like, they've been homeschooled for so long, and then when they come back, like, it shows up in Enrich that, you know, we're out of compliance, but really it's because they were homeschooled. So we treat it almost as like another initial. You know, we do it, but it says we're out of compliance, but it wasn't our fault. It's because they were homeschooled.
Right. So I think that's the next slide.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll get to that when students when they move in, like with an expired reeval date, and we'll talk about that right now. So basically, you know, just remember, you don't want to miss your reeval dates, like we were just saying. Make sure you're tracking them however you're tracking them in your school. I mean, none of you are really big schools. Elizabeth, you're probably the biggest out of the three of you. But you just want to make sure that your folks aren't missing those deadlines. So the rule is, I'm just going to click here to see if we have it. No, we don't. Okay, so our rule of thumb is this. So if you have a student that moves in, transfers in, whether they are homeschooled, private schooled, in another district or whatever, and they have an expired IEP. We all know what happens, right? If their IEP if their reeval is within that, if it's within that 3-year time frame of the reevaluation, right? So we're still within the time frame of the last time they were evaluated to what it currently is, then you don't necessarily have to do an evaluation, right? If you could, you know, look at what it is, you still, you know, and move forward and do that IEP. If the evaluation is beyond 3 years, are you with me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We do recommend that you all come together as a team and actually evaluate that child, because it has been beyond that time frame. Now, you would still accept the IEP as it is and, you know, make changes or whatever you need, and you would explain to the parent, you know, this is an old IEP, we're going to accept it, and here's what we're going to do in the meantime, but we're going to evaluate little Johnny, right? So we'll come back together and look at it. You know, that's fine. That's not necessarily going to be out of compliance. But if it's a child that's been in the system, you're not going to do it as an initial, Elizabeth. You're actually going to do it as a reeval if they're coming in with an IEP already.
Okay.
Because technically it's a reeval, not an initial.
Question, Laura, here. So if the child is coming from a private school, before being at private school, the child had an IEP, and then in private school, they continue with an individual student plan with accommodation, but not an IEP, then we go with the same procedure. If the reevaluation is not due, we can do a reevaluation, and if it's expired, we can do an evaluation, or we need to go from the very beginning with the RTI process, or how?
No, you wouldn't need to go back. You would handle it the same way if they came in with an ISP. Just remember, when you're that ISP, once they enroll in your school, is actually going to turn back into an IEP.
An IEP.
Right.
Okay.
But you would still handle that in the same process, Lucia.
Okay. What about, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lucia.
No, that was it. That was the question. Thank you.
Okay, what about out of state? They come from out of state, whether they're in compliance or not. Don't we treat those as initials?
So they would, yes, you would. Well, it'd still be a reeval. I mean, 6 one way, half a dozen another. If they're moving out from out of state, they still have to meet eligibility in South Carolina. So either way, those out of state kiddos, you're going to have to evaluate because they have to meet eligibility in South Carolina. Now, when I say evaluate, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have to test. It means you need to meet as a team, and it would actually be a reeval, Elizabeth, because they have already been identified, even though it's in another state. You know, you guys want to meet as a team. The stuff that's coming in may be acceptable in South Carolina, and they may meet eligibility. But if it's not, then you would actually have to test because they do have to meet, eligibility in South Carolina.
So did you say we will have to test?
If they're moving from out of state, you may not, but you guys need to meet as a team and look and see if, based on the information you've received, if they meet eligibility in South Carolina. If they don't, or you need more information, then yes, the school's going to have to test if they're from out of state.
Could that be done at the 30-day meeting?
Yes. Well,
before?
It can be, but I mean, if you can get it done sooner, if it's an out-of-state student, you're going to have to do it. So you still call in 5 days, but you can turn that 30 days into a lot sooner because you have to evaluate. And then, until the evaluation's done, then you would write that new IEP. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So let's say you start the evaluation, you decide that they need to evaluate. So then you have a 60-day timeline. So does that 30-day timeline to write the IEP get extended because of the evaluation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think that's what you were saying. I just want to make sure.
Yes. We know that 30-day timeline is a us policy. It's not a state policy. So we know that if students are being evaluated, that's going to bump that timeline out. That's fine.
Okay, I have a question about the slide before. There was a bullet at the very bottom about the dates and opening up documents.
Mm-hmm. Right, so this is when you're doing those initials. So once you complete that initial referral or reeval, remember, you want to immediately open the eligibility form and that evaluation form, just because for reporting purposes in Enrich, if we open them on different dates, the system doesn't read it as the same process. So you don't have to fill them out. You're going to open them and save them. That's all.
So are you saying that the initial, the eligibility, and the eval all need to be open the same, or just the eligibility and the eval form?
So you're going to do your initial referral, right, or reeval, and you're going to close it or finalize it. And then you're going to, let's talk through an initial. So you have your initial referral. Your team has met. Everybody's at the table. You decide, yes, we're going to go ahead and evaluate, right? Mm-hmm. So you get your consent. Before you leave that meeting, we want you to open the eligibility form and the evaluation form in Enrich. You don't have to fill it out. We just want you to open them the same day. So Enrich reads that as the same process. See what I mean?
Okay.
Connects it to the same.
Okay. So if I can I use dates to maybe help me understand? I'm sorry. I must be having a brain fart. Let's say I opened an initial referral because I wanted to put the information in that was already past information. And I opened it 2 days ago on the 29th, okay? And then we have the meeting tomorrow on the 1st. So I close it on the 1st, then I open the eligibility and the eval form, and the date on those are the 1st.
Correct.
Not the 29th.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then for reevals, if you're meeting as a team and you're doing the reeval review, obviously if you don't test, you're going to open all that on the same, you wouldn't open an evaluation, but you're going to open the eligibility on the same day because you'll immediately go into your eligibility if the team's not evaluating. If you are going to evaluate, you would handle the same process, Elizabeth, for reeval as you just talked about for the initial.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Of course, the other thing we talk about is annual reviews. Y'all make sure you're scheduling early. Use the rule of thumb. You can schedule an annual or even a reeval at least 6 weeks ahead of time. You want to get these on a calendar and get them scheduled so that they don't go out of compliance, right? You want to make sure you're allowing that parent enough time to arrange their work schedule if they're needed. Do not wait until 1 or 2 weeks before the AR date ends to schedule that meeting, because chances are something's going to happen and you're not going to have it in time. But you can always do them at least 6 weeks in advance. We don't recommend you do more than that, but at least get them on a calendar and get them scheduled in plenty of time for those what-if situations or those emergency situations, so that we don't run into situations where oh no, I didn't schedule that AR and it's due tomorrow and now mom can't come. Right? Make sure you have all your team members there present. If you have a reevaluation and an annual that are close together in terms of date, you'll save yourself some meetings and do them at one time. Do one-stop shopping, hold the annual, or do the reeval, then hold the annual, or vice versa. But if they're close enough in date, and I mean by like a couple of months, just do them at the same time. That way you don't have to come back together as a team. And make sure when you're at your meetings, you have everything enriched, ready to go, and that you all are ready to move forward. Any questions on those?
No.
Great. So just keep in mind, data reporting, again, is something that Susan and I do. We report to the state. You all report to us. You guys know this. June, July, and early August are actually very heavy reporting periods for us to the state. So, we do reach out and ask, for you all to, I thought we already went over this. Anyway, squirrel. We do ask for you to submit us some data or review some stuff. So this is that Enrich ticket again. I don't know why we have it twice.
What's the training site? What is that?
So there is if some of you remember, Lucia, you're probably the only one that remembers, way back when we used to have an Enrich training site where you guys could go on and log on and play in the system, and it didn't impact any of the live data. So that's been not available for a couple of years, but it is available again.
Yay!
So if you have new teachers and stuff, and Rosa, even you and Joanne, if you want to go in and play with the system just to get more familiar with it, use this staging site. You can go in and you can do anything with this piece, and it will not impact your live data. Your login and username is the same as you would in the live piece. I'll actually take you so you can see it. Let me just escape out of here.
I think y'all had it like right when we started.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we did when the Greenville schools moved over, and then what had happened was our server couldn't hold everything. So our server wasn't big enough for everything. So we've now been able to get a new one. And you can see, so it looks exactly the same, except you see this green box here. This is a training demo site. So you utilize it just like you do the live site, and you can literally go in and pull up any of the kids. You can play around with 504s if you do 504s. You can play around with different processes in Enrich, and it's not going to impact that live data. Okay. So if you need practice, or you have teachers that need practice, this is where you want to take them. The only thing you can't do in this system is you can't practice like an electronic transfer. Make sense? But anything else you can go in just like you would and just go in and play with it.
I think that process is ingrained in my brain from last year. It's like burnt into it.
I think everybody has learned, and of course it still gave us problems. So that's where Susan and I call Enrich and Rage sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you for raging for us.
Yeah, yeah. So that's just for your information, but please feel free to go in and play with it, or have your teachers. Just make sure they have that green box so that they're not actually going in and messing with live data. But it's a great, it's a great training tool for you all, for your folks, and of course for us, it was for our new folks that. And I know Rosa wishes we had it last year, but we got it this year now.
Okay.
So we do have your folders. We will get them sent out to you at your schools.
Okay.
But one of the things that, and this was actually Susan's idea, so y'all can thank Susan for this, but she asked me to put together just a list of what are some really useful reports in Enrich for you all. So you can, and they're, in Star Measure favorite. Most of them are already shared with you, and I may have already put them on your favorite, so you may already see them on your list. But these are some reports that, I think at the school level are extremely helpful for you all when you're looking at information. So that's just kind of an FYI. And just remember, if there's a specific report you want or something you're creating, you can reach out to me or Susan. She's getting much better at this, right, Susan?
I'm trying, ladies.
She's doing awesome with Enrich. So you can reach out to either one of us, and we can create that report for you, and then probably share it with other folks because it's probably something that other people may need. And if we can't create it, we'll let you know. I mean, if you're familiar with reporting and you want to go in, you guys have the ability to do that. You are free to go in. You're not going to mess any of the data up. It gets, once you get into those reports and enrich and creating them, it can get a little bit confusing. But feel free to try and create your own, or just make it easy for yourself and ask one of us. Any questions so far? We're kind of just flying through this. We're good, ladies? Okay. So just remember about transition and indicator 13. So this is for students who will turn 13 in the life of the IEP. You need to make sure it's addressed in the present levels and strengths and needs. Our post-secondary considerations. Lucia, we got a big lesson on this when we had that audit, right? So everybody got really good at this. There are resources on the Google Drive in regards to assessments and stuff. If you haven't been to that site, Susan has uploaded a lot of stuff on there. You can tie your transition into your academics as long as it's justified in the present level. Each goal is, remember, check transition. And then, don't forget, y'all remember our high school credential. Well, Lucia, you specifically.
I don't know yet. Last year, it was a student that we discussed. The parent didn't want to hear about. They mentioned that in middle school, they told about the South Carolina high school credential. He passed at the minimum all of the classes, so we'll see how that will go this year.
Okay, great.
So we decided to go with a high school diploma for this student. Now, for this upcoming year, I don't know yet if we will have or not.
Okay, so great. I'm glad you guys had those discussions. So that still is in existence. You will have to do those policies and procedures again, which reminds me I need to post them. And you're pretty much, Lucia, probably just going to copy and paste what you had last year because nothing has really changed, I'm sure, in terms of what you plan to do. But if you have a student that your team or you're thinking about for a high school credential, so just reach out to Susan or I, just so we can kind of help you talk through it and make sure, we're making good decisions about this. Because remember, this does not help your graduation rate. The students don't get any term type of diploma. It actually counts against your graduation rate. And if you remember, Lucia, there are a lot of components to what's required for that credential.
Yes, yeah. Indeed.
Yep. So we did take the time to go a little bit through Epicenter and really just about reviewing and completing submissions. Just be mindful of your due dates when things are due in Epicenter. We don't just randomly pick dates, and Susan will talk a little bit on the CGI, how that's changed for next year. But just be mindful of that. And do you all know that in Epicenter, one of the questions we had was about a calendar, that you can actually print a calendar from Epicenter that shows when things are due?
Yeah, is it updated yet?
So new tasks are rolling over. We have not updated ours yet for special ed. And honestly, they probably won't be updated till I think we decided like the 3rd week of August because, I'm going to be gone next week. So we'll get those updated that 3rd week of August. Nothing for CGI is due until the 1st week of September. So you have plenty of time. You don't have to worry about it. And if we don't, for some reason, can't get them updated, we can change and extend some of those dates. So at this point, don't go in and print that calendar and start trying to upload stuff because we've got to go in and update the tasks. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody in your school needs access to Epicenter, they actually email Emily. She handles that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And there's her contact. We'll actually go through this. So one of the things we found with PowerSchool Enrich was that parent information. So schools were indicating that the parent information wasn't showing up in Enrich. Have you all had any of that problems?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm gonna take a minute here and just show you where that information needs to be in PowerSchool. what fields it needs to be in, so it reads into Enrich. Y'all should see my Power Screen School now, right? I'm just going to randomly pick a student, and I'll make sure at the training I actually deleted a parent contact by mistake. So when you pick your student, so where it goes is you click this States, Providence, South Carolina, and you go into your contacts. And that student information, so that parent information, you can see that it's here. But in order for Enrich to read it, it has to be down here in this box.
Where?
See right here where I'm pointing? It's on that contact page. You just have to scroll down and you can see they edit it. But this is where Enrich and Power School talk and they read it from. So your contact information needs to be in here in order for it to show up in Enrich. So it can't just be up here in the top. It needs to be down here in the bottom as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you're having issues, you want to make sure your Power School person knows to put that, I'm pointing at my screen like you all can see me, knows to put them here in the bottom. Otherwise, if they're just here, Enrich isn't going to read them and you're not going to see that parent contact information, you know, on the IEP or anything. It has to be down here in these boxes. Any questions on that?
No. Laura,
Mm-hmm.
can we have a screenshot of this or something to show them? I mean, I can go through it with the people from our school, but if it's a screenshot to show them.
Yeah, I think I've done one and sent it out. So
Okay.
I sent it out to everybody. I think I've sent it out to a couple people who have asked. So I will see if I can find that. If not, we will. And remember,
Okay.
Lucy, this is going to be posted this webinar, so you can just go to, you know, fast forward or whatever to this section to show them as well. But
Okay.
But we will send out a screenshot of it, or I don't know, Susan, what do you think? Should we put it on the Google Drive maybe? Susan, are you there? Oh.
Sorry, I'm here. I was talking. I didn't realize I was muted. So I do think that if we do a screenshot and then we'll put it in to our Google Drive, I think that would be the most helpful and let everyone know it's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll do it that way, Lucia, okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you all let the Power School coordinators be made aware as well?
So it should be in their Power School training. We don't do that part of training. But if there are questions, once this is put up, you know, and I'm, you know, in the next couple of days, Marissa, I would just print it out and show it to him and say, hey, here's where this needs to be in order for it to read and enrich. I mean, there's really not much training to it, but I would just share it with your Power School person.
Okay.
So at this point, we took lunch. Obviously, we're not going to take lunch, but do you guys want to take just like 5 minutes here to get a drink or whatever, step away, and then we'll come back and keep going?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
I need to run I need to run out to the restroom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll come back in about 5 minutes.
Laura,
Okay.
do you know about how much longer the training is? I'm actually in another training right now and have stepped out of that. Do you know about how much longer, so I can let my principal know?
Susan, what do you think? I mean, you've got the Elliot.
I can't see the total slides. We're going to talk, you guys are veterans, so we're going to talk about LEA determination, but it's going to go so fast. What's after that, Laura?
I don't remember. I mean, I'd say like at the most, Elizabeth, 40 minutes and probably less than that.
I was thinking like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just say 30
Okay,
to 40
so
to her.
I have 11:08. What time are we coming back in?
So let's come back at 11:15.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody,
All right.
everybody go take care of their personal needs and do what you need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Hey, Elizabeth,
All
before we
right.
get started, I meant to ask, how is CPI training?
Really intense,
Yeah.
but I'm trained. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So before Susan takes over, do you have any questions for us about anything from the last hour? Or you think you're good?
I'm good.
Pretty
Good.
much the same as it's been.
Yeah.
Rose, are you back?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
I am.
Oh, okay. And you know, we're here to help you, so just ask.
Okay.
All right, Susan.
Okay, ladies. So as you know, we get rated by the state on how our students with disabilities perform on a performance scale, but then also how the district performs in compliance, okay? So the way that they measure us has not changed from when we reviewed it last year. Laura, you can switch. So the how we're rated is in front of you on your screen. And remember, we're being rated from a year back. So this is the 17-18 school year, because when they gave us our rating in the spring, the 18-19 scores hadn't been done. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
26.
So we're rated either a 0 through a 3, and of course we want all 3s, and then how the district is rated. So our score did not change from the previous year. The previous year we also got a 26. So in district compliance, our score that for this FY17 was a 12. Last year we got 12 on compliance. Our district performance score, and I'm looking at the chart at the bottom of the screen, our district performance score was 14. Last year we got a 14. However, you're going to see in future slides that our district performance changed in certain areas, okay? So we'll talk about that. But out of 36, we got a 26. Again, we are 2 points from being at the top tier and not needing any technical support from the state.
This is 2 years ago?
I'm sorry, what?
17.
This is from 2 years ago?
This is school year 17-18.
Okay.
So it's the year before last year. And then next year when we get rated, it will be FY18. It will be the last school year. So our compliance, this is how our compliance factors, and nothing changed. See, our FY16 score was what we operated off from last year. We got the same in every area. Some of these never change in the sense that, like compliance factor 3, the indicator 13, we're audited every 3 years. So we have that rating for 3 years. Now, Laura told you, not this year, but next year, we should be on that cycle to get audited again for indicator 13. And then we're hoping that becomes a 3, which will help us. And then the 5, compliance factor 5 is what Laura talked about, a 60-day timelines. And we are anticipating in 2 years, this will go down because of last year's 4 IEPs or timelines that were missed, okay? The financial submissions, that is the district. Now that's not all on Laura and I and our finance team, because if we get late things from schools, it delays us processing our stuff to the state. So we really need to make sure that the school-based level, and then Laura and I are very diligent in making sure that the district level is now compliant. So again, that was from 17-18, okay? And Laura,
But
we
wouldn't have anything to do with the finance submissions, would we, Susan?
Well,
the coordinators?
Some coordinators do, some coordinators do not. It depends on how your school is set up. But what we're seeing is those finance submissions from the school can delay us processing at the district level.
Okay.
Now, Laura, I know this year we were great on all of our timelines. What about the year before?
So this should go up next year.
Okay.
On our current rating, because we were much better last year about getting things submitted in time.
Okay.
Like Susan said, some of that was out of our control, but we've been very diligent on keeping up with folks and making sure we get this stuff submitted to the state on time.
So we're hoping that goes to a 3, but that will probably just balance out when we end up. I'm trying to think, because when we, with 5 going down, so there's other areas we need to pick up points, okay? Okay, I think, any questions on the compliance end? That was a good question, Rosa.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how we're rated, the performance factors from the state. And I know there's a lot on this chart. Some people want basic information. Some people want more linear and to compare from year to year. So 15, 16, 16, 17, and 17, 18 is here. If you look on the right-hand column, please, it shows FY17 score. In the parenthesis is our last year's score in that area. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you will see performance factor 3, which is math. Last year we got a 2, and this year we got a 0.
Wow.
And the reason we stayed the total score of 14 the same is because performance factor 7, where last year we got a 0, and this year we got a 2. Okay?
Wow.
Now, if you go back up and look at performance factor 3 for math, we went from last year having a 12.2%, or it's actually not last year, it was our scores, ratings from last year, but our scores from 16, 17. Our students with disabilities on SC Ready Math, 3rd through 8th grade, 12.2% scored met or above on that assessment. Then you go to 17, 18 scores, 11.2 scored met or above. We went down a percentage. Now, we are below what the state is at 13.5. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The state target every year goes up, and the state performance went up from 12.4% to 13.5%, while ours went down a percentage, and that would constitute our drop. They look at, do we remain the same? Do we go up? And then also in correlation between the state on how they give us our score. Okay? So we got some work to do in math. Now, when you look at ELA, there was a lot of questions when we did the live demo last week, because ELA, we also went down, but why we didn't change scores. So the state in 16, 17 was 9.4%. We were 12.6% that year. So we were way above the state performance. Do you see that? Now then you look over for 17, 18, the state went up 0.6% to 10%, which is not a very big, but we did go down, and we still are above the state performance. That's why we did not move.
Yeah. Even
though we dropped as a district by less than is that less than a percentage?
Yeah.
We are still above the state performance of students with disabilities. So that's why we stayed at 2, even though we dropped. Now, I don't know about you guys. I mean, what are some of your reactions to this?
I mean, my first reaction is how long ago it was, like it's hard to, I mean, obviously, like we're going down in some areas and it shows that math is needed, but, if we make that our priority right now, we don't even have our scores for 18, 19. I mean, this is just my opinion, and I'll do whatever we need to do, but it just seems like it's not really, the scores here aren't as relevant as the ones this coming year will be.
Elizabeth, you're preaching to the choir on that. Getting these
turnaround. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, what?
I just wish the turnaround on our scores and our data was more relevant. mean, you know, I've worked in states where you get it back in 2 weeks because they let the district office do the score, like to grade the scores, and it just, I don't know, it's just South Carolina just doesn't get it back in time to do anything with it.
So I think, you know, I think you're right in the sense that your frustration, because we feel it too, but also this is the system we're in. So, you know, our LEA determination is a year in the rear. But Laura and I have had discussions on this, and when we talk about CGI, there's a few tweaking that we did of CGI, and there's going to be something in there that's more current scores, okay? So, but, you know, it is what it is in the sense as a district. Are we going to have to be targeting math in some way? Sure, because in the end, regardless, I mean, even if these were 18, 19 scores, I guarantee if they've gone up, they're not going to go up that much because that's just not realistic in nature. And I think our kind of discussion focus has been even if a year in the rear, you know, around 11% of our population is reading and doing math at or above grade level, that is still just not good enough. So I think targeting it, because even let's say, for example, like last year was phenomenal. We targeted reading a lot. Schools were doing phenomenal things. If there is results, I mean, statistics show we're not going to go up by that much statistically. But we want to keep on trending up. But even if we don't go up, but it's not that much, it's still, we got to do more, you know, because you're looking at 1 in 10 of students with disabilities who are grade level in reading and math based on state assessments, okay? So, you know, I think we look at that. The state has not given us guidance on what's next. Are we going to have to do another action plan? Not sure yet. We haven't gotten that notification. But as soon as we know, you will know. But I would start looking at how are you targeting math. And so like Elizabeth, for your school that has very much different profile needs than the other schools, one, understanding where your students are in math is very important if you don't already. So I would be looking at some of those things. For everyone else, you know, making sure that you do gauge if you do something like map testing or some curriculum-based measurement tool, make sure you're not just focusing on reading, make sure you understand where your kids are in math, okay?
Yep.
One wonderful thing is we know for a fact next year we should go up in performance factor 1. Our graduation rate overall in a district has gone up significantly. We are hoping that also is reflective of our students with disabilities because we are under the state threshold and the state target. So that's something when we look at 45% of our students with disabilities are graduating in 4 years with a high school diploma. And then obviously indicator or performance factor 7, that is very much going up and we're above the state. So at some point, if we keep on rising and we continue to be above the state, that would be awesome to go to a 3. Anything else that you guys want that hasn't been touched on from this chart that you would like to reflect on, or you know, you're also welcome to take this back to your school. Now this is district scores and percentages. This isn't necessarily, you know, just school.
So one of the interesting things about this data that was pointed out too is if you look, so 56% of our students with disabilities are passing that career readiness test, but we're only graduating 45% of those kids. So that's really interesting to me. Like we're doing good on a test, but we're still not making it with that graduation rate. So,
and it would be really interesting to look at this for next year also and see if that trend's still there, because technically our graduation rate should go up because performance factor 7 is 11th grade.
Yeah.
Now you would think that they would not be that statistically different. 11 percentage points is a lot between if it's judging our 12th graders or 11th graders, but I'm just curious if performance factor 1 is going to have a big boost because of those 11th graders. Who knows? It'll be interesting to watch. That's why looking at trends across years are really important.
And the other really good thing, if you look at number 6 with suspensions, so in 15-16, we suspended 11.8% of our kids. In 16, 17, we dropped to 5.8% of our students. And then this past, or the year before, we're dropping to 5.3. So one of the things we commended you all on is how you are in your schools, how you guys are clearly working with your administrators and those that do suspensions on coming up with alternative options as opposed to just suspending and sending our kids home. So that's a big drop. And, you know, we're hoping that trend is going to continue. Obviously, if you look at the state, I mean, 15.9% of students with disabilities, you know, were suspended. Now that includes in school and out of school. The other thing that Susan and I shared was that, you know, we've gathered the discipline data for this past school year. And, you know, we were going over the results, and really, I mean, I'm anticipating that this number is going to be even lower next year. So according to the data, which is fabulous, we didn't have any student with a disability suspended more than 10 days in any of our schools this year. So that is great. We didn't have any students with disabilities that were expelled this year. So, you know, kudos to you all for really working hard on that suspension piece and that behavior and getting things in place in your building, because clearly it is making a big difference.
Yay!
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's really great. I mean, we're keeping our kids in school, which is what we want to do, because, you know, they're our most neediest kids. Yeah, so.
Well, and the state is either going up or remaining stagnant. They're not really dropping.
Yeah, so kudos to y'all for working with those administrators. Good job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's making a huge difference.
Okay, let's go to the next one, Laura.
This is where Susan gets to tell me what to do. She likes that.
Please, please. So, we're not going to do this because we've done this in the past, so you guys know the drill. But these questions on here, be sure that you have answers for these. So, like, do you understand how your school's performing in English and math and reading, writing, and math? Not just your school performance, but pulling out those students with disabilities, okay? If you have high school, so Lucia, when you look at that, those scores that we just saw was work keys. Now last year we did win. So there could be a shift because based on a different test. But are you clear how your students as overall perform, and then also pulling out those students with disabilities? As Laura said, and so Lucia, you may also want to be looking not just at work keys and win, but end of course exams, because that will give you a lot of your reading, writing, and math information too, okay? When you look at suspensions, obviously kudos to you guys, but make sure, are you guys suspending your students with disabilities at a higher rate than your general population? And not that you can't, but what does that look like, and making sure there's safeguards in place, okay? Because as we know, students with IEPs, their behavior is not always as a result of their disability. So it's not that you can't do that, you just need to be aware of what the practices are and the patterns in your building. When you look at outcomes, making sure you understand what those scores look like, those present levels look like, and then if you don't have that information, how are you getting it? And then also looking towards more math information, because we're going under the assumption we're going to have to move forward with some sort of math plan. But please do not disregard reading and writing, because that is so important, and we need to continue being diligent with that.
So like Elizabeth and Rosa, this will be your baseline year, because this will be the first year you'll have some scores now.
Right.
Okay.
Now that these kids have been there for a year. So this will be your first year. So for you guys, this will really be your baseline as to where you are and where you need to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, move on, please. Okay, CGI. So you guys are not new to CGI. It's the same, but we have tweaked it. Some of you know and even may have participated in, we had volunteers to do a focus group because Laura and I knew some things that we wanted to tweak but we also wanted people's input on this. So we held focus groups over the summer. We had 2 conversations and gave feedback to everybody that was part of that focus group. And we took that to heart and we made some adjustments to CGI. So this slide isn't new. So when you look at, and do you guys have a copy of the new CGI?
No.
Let's see, because that would be important. Let me look and see if it's is it on our website? I can't remember if I put it up or not. I think I did. But I can email it to you ladies super quick. Yep. You want me to email it or do you want to get it off the website?
Won't it be in our packet we get too?
Right, but we're going to talk about some of the changes, and to go quicker, I think to have it would be beneficial.
Can you email it?
I can pull it up to you here, Susan.
Yeah.
While you're doing that, I'll pull it up. It's on our Google site, Susan?
It is. I just had it, Laura. Do you want me to email it real quick? Sorry, guys.
Is it under policies and procedures? Where did we put it?
Here, I have it. I'm going to email it really quick.
Okay.
If I can get all my different screens to do what I want it to do. Okay.
Y'all know how to minimize the meeting but not go out of the meeting?
Yeah, I'll share the screen here in a minute, Elizabeth.
Oh, Laura, you're just going to put it up? Let's do that.
Yeah, I'll just put it up on the screen here if you want to.
I hear what you're saying now.
Yeah, because I don't know how to minimize and open up.
And
yeah, no, she's going to pull it up. And Laura, just pull up the chart.
Okay.
Please. I feel like I'm being super bossy right now.
I have a copy of what my results are from last school year. So is that going to be the same chart?
No.
Okay.
This is different, and we made a chart this year.
Okay.
And Laura will put it up on your screen. Okay.
Okay.
Now, Rosa, you're just gonna have to listen along, but since you don't have the screen, but it is in our support services website under the exchange of information where we post all of our webinars, and it's posted under the new coordinator training as an attachment because all the new coordinators received it also.
Okay.
Because then that will go through a bunch of slides instead of going through all of them like this. So basically, we adjusted a few. I'll just talk about it until Laura pulls it up. But we did a slide because, or a chart, because there was some confusion last year of who turns what in and when, okay?
And did you email it to me?
No, it's on the, I thought you're pulling it off the website.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, y'all keep talking.
Sorry. So basically, one of the things we did is there is no longer checklists for tier 1 and 2. Okay? Is that good or bad, ladies? Do you care? We felt like you got the people who were turning in were really just kind of going through an initialing, and it was kind of a waste of your time. So what we did is saying that everyone will get the submission tasks in Epicenter, and if it doesn't apply to your tier, then you just submit and say, I'm tier 1, okay? So everyone's turning something in, but some people don't have work to do with it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Also, every task that's outlined will be due the first Friday of the month. So there's no question of when things are due. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So in this, see the chart in front of you. SPED policies and procedures is no different, but it's due the first Friday in September from everyone. You see that? And then the high school credential policies and procedures are only for schools that have 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. So in this conversation, it's just Lucia. That will be due the first Friday in September. I know last year everyone emailed them to Laura. This year it's being submitted through Epicenter.
Okay.
So like Elizabeth, you won't have this, and so you'll just submit your task and say, I don't have high school. Does that make sense, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
And Rosa? Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone turns those first two in. Then if you're a tier 3, you'll also do the staff development, which is not any different, and the confidential files and the certifications. Those are all due the first Friday in September. That's no change from in the past. We tried to map things out through the year a little more and spread them out, but those few things we really have to have on the front side of a school year, okay? If you look in the right column where it says evidence to submit in Epicenter, we tried to be more clear of what you needed to submit. Now, when you then look at indicator number 6, performance of students with disabilities, this is all new. This is that how we're connecting how this district's being rated on performance of students and how we connect it to our growth and our capacity and growth index. What you have to do this year, it's a baseline. Every school has to submit it, and you have to submit an Excel spreadsheet of your scores. So if Epicenter's confidential, so if it has student names with information on it, it's confidential, it's okay. If you want to switch them to ID number or whatever, that's fine too. But we want an itemized spreadsheet of your students' scores. We know the scores and the cutoff to be met or above. So but if you have a column that says met or whatever, that's fine too. But most folks say this is somewhere and they can just copy and paste. We only want students with disabilities. We don't want your whole school. If you have elementary, that would just be what you would submit as an Excel spreadsheet for your 3rd through 8th grade for ELA. You would have another tab or another Excel spreadsheet, however you want to do it, for math 3rd through 8th. Same with middle school, would do the same thing. And then high school, it would be your career college readiness assessment and end of course exam.
I have a question. Are we doing, it's the previous grade? So like I would do 3rd through 5th because I have 6th grade this year, but they haven't taken the test.
Whatever scores you have from last spring.
So it would be the scores of the grade they're in last year.
Yes. So if this year if you're adding 5th grade this year, but last year you had 4th, it would be that 4th grade submission.
Okay, what about newly enrolled students and transfer students? Do we include their scores?
If you can get them, if you can't, don't worry about it. Some of that information is in Rich as a transfer. Sometimes schools don't give that to us.
And Susan,
So you're talking about test scores?
We're talking about SC Ready for 3rd through 8th grade, yes.
Yes.
And Susan, for the end of course exam, should we include the US history also or just English and math? I mean, just algebra and English.
Last year they took history, didn't they? Or was last year the first year it was gone?
Okay. Last year.
Yeah, so I would include that. So you would do your English one, your algebra one, your biology, and your US history for last year.
Okay.
Now this year, with English 2 being added, we'll talk about that next year, okay?
Okay.
So whatever was required for the state as an end of course exam, the previous year, and don't forget, if you did have anyone, I don't think, Lucia, you guys are on a year schedule, right? So you wouldn't have had anyone taking it in December.
No. And another question, we had last year English 2 as a trial. Now, are we including that too or no?
Well, let me ask you, do you have that information in a condensed way like you would have the other information?
I will need to ask.
So why don't you touch base with me? The goal is for you guys to not go to a lot of work because this information is readily available in spreadsheet format. That English 2, since it was a trial period, I think if you can access it easily, I think it's more information. If it's going to be a kind of a burden to gather it, then I want to touch base with you because I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Also,
And you're saying,
I'm sorry, Rosa, what were you saying?
I'm sorry. I cut somebody off. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Was it you, Lucia, who was asking the question?
No, it was me.
Okay. I wanted to know about the elementary school. You said just put the test scores. We develop an Excel spreadsheet ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can take that Excel spreadsheet and load it in.
Okay.
Into Epicenter.
Okay.
Keep in mind, this will also encumber, don't forget about like your speech only kids. They have IEP, so it will include them as well.
Okay.
And this is not, like, we're not going to rate you on how your students did. This is just, you just need to submit it. Because remember, this is your baseline data. So it's not going to be, hey, you know, Lakes and Bridges, you did much better than Bettis. We're not looking at it that way right now. We're looking at, for this purpose, you submitted it. We need to get a baseline of where everybody's at, and you need to, right? You need to know what these scores are and where you as a school need to be.
Yeah, if you're having to pull this information, if you're having to pull this information, you're looking at it. So, Rosa, this will be due the first Friday in October.
Okay.
And so remember, it's from last spring. And you submit it on time, and it's what we say on the spreadsheet of the evidence to submit, you're going to get a 3.
Yep.
Okay.
The desk audit, which is indicator 7, has changed a little bit. You just submit one student ID number. And you submit service logs and accommodation modification logs. Everything else, Laura and I can find in Epicenter. But we are...
Those logs and accommodations are just for that one student. Don't send us everybody's. Just for that one student you select.
For 1 month. So one student for 1 month.
Okay.
Log for 1 month.
Yeah, and there's more explanation. This is just a chart at a glance for your easy reference. There's more explanation in the previous part of the document. So like we're looking at making sure items are attached in Enrich. Anything with a signature should be uploaded and attached. We're making sure it's the right student's document. We're making sure timelines were met. We're looking at a lot of the whole process for that kid.
But that one student ID is also that same student service logs, that same student accommodation logs. So make sure those match. Don't send us a student ID and then send us logs and accommodations of another student. It's all the same student.
A student's schedule in PowerSchool is not evidence we want. We want some sort of log because we can go up and look at the schedule in PowerSchool. Okay?
Yes.
And that log, are we talking our students are resource students, so we're talking about the special ed log, or are we talking about everything? We're talking about a full class log.
Well, the accommodations should be reflective of any accommodation a student's getting throughout the day, and most of those would be in a gen ed setting. Now, if most of your children are getting services in a resource setting, then those service logs would obviously be reflective of that. But don't forget your speech, OT, PT services that need to be accounted for.
Okay.
So, and that's the first Friday in November. So that will give Laura and I some time to review. And if we have concerns or some things missing, we'll talk to you directly and ask for more information or another student to review.
Okay. But right now we're talking about selecting one student.
One student, and the evidence provided is for 1 month.
Okay.
Initial eligibility is new, you guys. We added this because of the missed timelines and the impact that it's going to have on our LEA determination. So initial eligibility, which is what you've done before, you're going to have to give some sort of spreadsheet or some sort of documentation of the students and the timeline. And if it's missed, you have to explain it. You have to do this the first Friday in November. And then if you look at number 14, it has to be resubmitted the first Friday in May. And it's for all schools because most of our deadlines that were missed were tier 1 schools. So that one that you resubmit in May, you can take exactly what you submitted in November and just add the kids in it that you've done initial eligibility since that time in November. Or that would be the easiest way, I would think, because most schools have a running list going.
Yeah, so on that spreadsheet you create, you're going to want either the student name or student ID, the date that you held the referral meeting, the date that you received the consent for evaluation, and then you're going to, also have the date eligibility was determined and when the IEP was developed. Those are the dates we're looking for. And that's where, Elizabeth, if you have a student that transferred in the middle of the process and you missed a date, you could put, leave a column for notes and just put transferred in the middle of an evaluation, just let us know that.
Okay.
Laura, the chart that you put up, I can't see that, but you're going to send that to us?
Yeah, so it's on our Google Share Drive, and we'll also send you your folders, and this will be in there as well.
Okay.
But yeah, Rosa, you can go onto the support services website, and it's in there right now.
Okay.
So comparable services didn't change. IFA did not change. Limited English proficiency did not change for those submissions. Neither did the reevaluation timeline. They just maybe do it different times of the year. Like we said, we try to spread them out. And same with annual review timelines. Nothing changed with that. It just changed maybe when it's due. Discipline is due the first Friday in May. Nothing changed with that. I think we added tier 2 has to submit that now. So it's tier 2 and tier 3. So the final thing that needs to be considered, indicator 16, that is nothing you guys submit. You just need to be aware of how we have a gauge and a score for timeliness of submission and following through with the technical assistance calls. So if you're a tier 3, those are weekly calls. Tier 2, one time a month. And tier 1, it's only when you call us when you need something. But if those regularly scheduled calls for tier 2 and tier 3 are frequently missed without notification, we could drop your score for that timeliness of response, okay?
Do you all like this little chart? I know, Rosa, you can't see it.
I can't see it, but it sounds like it's going to be helpful to me.
Yeah,
I can't see it, but it sounds like it's going to. But it's going to be very helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to give kudos to Susan because this is her idea because, she's extremely visual. And I think it's really great because you all literally can just take this piece and stick it on a board or somewhere so you have this easy access. So we've got a lot of positive feedback about it. So hopefully you all will find it very helpful. I know even for me, as much as I probably don't want to admit, this has made it a lot easier to remember what's due when, because we forget too. So, Susan did all that. So I know I appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to show you, and I know, Rosa, you can't see this. I mean, you can see as I'm kind of scrolling up here that everything is the same. Like it doesn't look different. But I do want to note another little pretty visual table that Susan added to this. And that's this one here. And Rosa, when you get it, you'll be able to see it. So this is, as you guys know, this CGI directly impacts your rating from our district in that special ed piece. So on your school performance framework, this CGI and all of these documents, it directly will indicate if you meet or you don't meet for special education on that rating for the district. So she's created this pretty little sheet or pretty little chart that shows, this year there's 16 indicators. Here's how we figure it out. So there's no question how we determine the score, and then you'll get your school, your possible score, the school score, and then what tier you'll be on from the following year. So you won't get, you'll still get an email, but we'll say your final CGI is attached and your rating is included in that. Okay? Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what do y'all think? Are you excited about this? Not so much?
I like a lot the spreadsheet. How you did it is more readable friendly, or how to say. I really like it.
Good.
Well, and
And
also,
I'm sure I will.
You will, Rosa. You will.
I'm sure I will. Being a tier 3, that's gonna help me. Yes,
It will.
I'm sure it is.
yes, and also looking, the indicators are in order in the explanation and in the same order in the chart, too.
Okay.
So I'm going to move forward through this PowerPoint since Susan went over all of this stuff in the CGI. Okay.
Some update to the policy and
So now we're on updates to policies and procedures. So they're both listed. There are a couple things we added to the policies and procedures. I think we sent them all out to you all, did we? I think we might have. If not, the link is on the Google site. The only thing we added, the few things we added, one, if you remember, it was a very colorful document. It's no longer as colorful. We took out some of those updates. We had to keep track of that till the state reviewed our policies again. So since we're going to be heading into a new cycle for review, we took out all those other colors and now it's black, except in some areas. It's still the same way you fill it out. That hasn't changed. We did add information about seclusion and timeout and restraint. So in that section, we do ask now that you provide detailed information on your school procedures in terms of, if you have to restrain or if you're using seclusion. And then we also ask for the individuals who are CPI trained in your building. Now that we have a larger mass of folks across the district who are trained, we do ask that you list. That would be the only place in that document where you'll actually list a person's name and then the date they were certified. And then the other piece we added, which you'll see when you get it, is one about inclement weather. So we have at least one school we know when there's a lot of snow and stuff, they are going along with a virtual makeup session, which is fine. You can do that, but there is a section in there now that addresses if you are going to do that, you just need to put how you're going to address services for students. If that doesn't apply to you at all, you would just put in that little box, our school will not participate in virtual sessions. That's all. Okay. So we know not everybody's going to do it, but we know some are. So we just wanted to make sure we were covered in that section. I think, if I remember correctly, Susan, those were the only updates, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So those haven't changed, really, except for those updates. Go ahead, Susan, you can do this.
So making sure that the information that's going into PowerSchool regarding discipline, make sure that you're touching base and reviewing that monthly to make sure it's accurate, because that's what we pull for our state reporting at the end of the year for discipline. So it's only as accurate as what's being entered, okay? Make sure that people know in your building your special education policies and procedures, specifically looking at discipline, because most of the time it's not a special ed coordinator that's really implementing that. It is an administrator or someone at another leadership role. So policies and procedures should not be something that you guys submit in Epicenter and file away somewhere. It should be something that people in the school that are implementing it know what it is, and also parents would need to know your policies and procedures. Some schools are going as far as saying we're posting them. Some schools are saying, we're going to have a contact information if anyone wants to look at them, but it's really very much part of how you operate in your building. And then the code of conduct is fine to have for a school, and all schools typically have them. But make sure that your policies and procedure is aligned with that. And then sometimes that special ed policies and procedures is above and beyond for students with disabilities. You have questions on that?
I mean,
No.
you are doing really good with discipline.
We are. Those are just general reminders.
Right. Don't forget, students can be suspended for more than 10 days. You all know that. Once you hit day 11, you need to have services in place. Fortunately, like I said, last year, we didn't have any students with disabilities expelled or over 10 days. When you have those situations, please let Susan or I know. We're happy to talk through them. So that's just a reminder about that. If we're approaching 10 days, a pattern of removals has been established. You as teams should be convening and looking at the IEP, making a changes to services, perhaps doing an FBA, perhaps adding a BIP. I said bit. Best practices after 4 days of suspension, y'all should be meeting as teams and discussing what's happening, because clearly there's some sort of impact going on here. We won't spend a lot of time on this. MDR's basic thing to know is that unless it's one of the big three and a team is considering an expulsion, and the big three, I mean drugs, weapons, or seriously bodily injury, you do not hold an MDR until we're getting to that 11th day. So if a student's been suspended, you're at 5 days, don't hold an MDR just to hold one. You don't do it till you get to the point that you're going to be over 10 days. Again, unless the school is considering an expulsion, and then you have to hold an MDR.
Quick question here, Laura.
Yeah.
For the third one, serious bodily injury.
Yeah.
Now, if it's serious mentally injury, because bullying might affect the other in a mentally part, is that considered too for this third one?
So the state doesn't consider that as seriously bodily injury. When they're thinking about that, I mean, honestly, the best way I could say it is that somebody really hurt a child and they're on their way to the hospital.
Okay.
Like, we've got some serious things going on, right? It's not maybe they punched somebody, and left a bruise. It is like to the point where we're heading to your hospital. They are very specific on what that serious bodily injury looks like.
I have only had one in my career, and it was a kid that they had gotten a serious fight. And the child went to the hospital and had to have some reconstruction in their mouth. Yeah. Like surgery.
Okay. But I was referring if it has an effect to the other child, to the mentally condition. I mean, the same if the child is taken to mental care because the other one was bullying and so on. So not a physical, not the physical part, the mental part of the child. Right. It might be a very sensitive one that I don't know.
So I wouldn't see that as seriously bodily injury. Obviously, it's serious emotional injury. Mm-hmm. And what you and the administrator decide in terms of that student, you wouldn't necessarily do an MDR for that unless like you and, unless Josh and the board are considering an expulsion. If they're considering expelling that student that was doing the bullying, then you would do an MDR, because that's something you all are talking about. If you're not considering an expulsion, you wouldn't do an MDR.
All righty then.
And then one of the other things the state, while we were looking for MDRs at the end of last year, is don't forget about those post-MDR IEPs. So once you're holding an MDR, make sure you as teams, and we did a webinar on this and a training on this in the spring, but make sure you guys as teams are looking at that IEP. If you're holding an MDR, we should be making some changes to the IEP. And that's kind of where we lost a step in our district with students. We're doing a great job of notifying parents. We're doing a great job of holding these MDRs. But somehow we're forgetting that we're at these MDRs. We're talking about it, but we're not actually going in and making any changes to the IEP. So just make sure you all don't forget that step.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
Just remember, restraint and seclusion timeout. Only, staff members holding current CPI should restrain students. Now, that's not to say if you have a student that's in immediate danger, running out into the street, running in front of a bus, you're not gonna go and grab that student. Obviously, we're gonna do what is in the realm of keeping our students safe. We don't recommend seclusion and timeout, but that's why we've added this piece to our policies and procedures. If you as a school do that, we want to know what it looks like and what your procedures are for that. We do have that staff training. We do now have, I think it's 15, 16, I don't even know, I lost count. It might even be 17 at this point of you all who are now certified CPI trainers across our district. So that is awesome. So that will help out a lot. And just remember, anytime you have to physically restrain a child, make sure you're documenting that, and that's going home to the parent, things like that. So I'm not going to go over this, but these are just some things to think about what we should do if these situations happen. Here's that seclusion timeout. We don't recommend it. If you do use it as a school, remember it must be in the IEP, meaning in the FBA and the BIP. That is something that you're all gonna use. So PD webinars, like we said, email Susan or I if you have any ideas for webinars. We are gonna hold them this year on the second Wednesday of every month as opposed to the first. So we will begin those September 11th. And they will run from 1:30 to 2:30 like they did last year. And we will do them. If you can join live, great. If not, they will be posted within 48 hours and you can view it that way. Okay. Travel, this doesn't apply to you for today because you're doing this virtually.
Can you go back to the other slide, please?
Sure.
Second
Wednesday of every month.
1:30 to 2:30.
And we're going to start them September 11th. We won't start them until September.
Okay.
What we had talked about potentially is in August, probably, I mean, maybe even the last week as you guys are rolling through these things with Enrich and transfers, we're probably going to do and set up like a live technical assistance webinar for Enrich issues. That we might help troubleshoot you all through. That is not required for you to participate, but if you are having issues with Enrich or codes or whatever, we'll send something out, but please feel free to join that. That'll be time for folks to ask for help in that process just to kind of get everybody started. Now that we have a training site, we can do that. So travel, again, like I said, this doesn't apply to you guys for today because we did this virtually, but when you do come for meetings at the office, you know, the 3 that we require, we will reimburse for travel to and from for one individual from the school. So if you bring somebody else, carpool, and then there'll always be a form stack for you all to fill out, you know, just like you have in the past. That hasn't changed. And c'est la vie, that's it.
Okay.
I have something.
Yeah.
This isn't related to special ed, but I'm the 504 coordinator, and I know, Laura, you were in charge of 504 last year, correct?
We both were, yes.
Oh, you both were. Okay, so I guess I just figured because I said I'm not coming to the special ed coordinator meeting that you figured like I couldn't come to the 504 coordinator meeting either. My principal said something to me about it. So
yeah, I emailed Heidi and you and gave you an email about the email that was a follow-up email on some things that need to be done. And Heidi responded, you know, that you were in that training. I said, yeah, we knew that. And then I said, well, we wanted to make sure you guys had the information because there's a makeup training a week from Friday.
A week from this Friday?
Yeah, and that's in the email that you were on it too.
Huh. Okay. Maybe I'll look in my.
Elizabeth, I don't think you were on it because I don't think I take it back. I don't think you were on it. Heidi was on it because I didn't know who would be that 504 person because it's typically not the special ed coordinator, but sometimes it is. So I didn't want to make assumptions.
So you all didn't take a date for that. There's no repercussion for that, or anything, Elizabeth, and we will do a virtual makeup session for that one as well.
Yeah. Okay, I think Heidi said she can forward me the 504 information, the email that you
Okay,
sent.
Perfect.
Okay.
And will you send it to me as well, Susan?
You
Laura?
did. You it was sent to you this morning, Rosa.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Any other questions, y'all, that you have?
No, thank you very much.
No, very good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, ladies.
Have a
All
good
right.
day.
Thank you. Thank
Bye,
you.
girls. Have a great start of the year. Call
Bye-bye.
us if you need us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
I will. Thank
Bye.
you. And good luck to you all as you have your final test.
Oh,
Good luck.
thanks,
Thank
Rosa.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
If we're a little
Bye-bye.
ornery during that time, you know why.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
All right, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.